Welcome, fans, to another live edition of the Countdown to the TWA One and Done. This coming May 3rd, we're getting so close in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is episode 3, and we're very, very pleased to welcome one half of the broadcast team for May the 3rd, the man known as the quintessential stud muffin, Mr. Joel Gertner. But before we get into a plethora of questions for Joel, talking about his history in the business and his involvement in the show upcoming and the Fan Fest, don't forget the Fan Fest, the RassleCon, starting at noon on May the 3rd in the former ECW Arena, 2300 Arena. I have to throw to my broadcast partner for this endeavor, Mr. Bay Chubby Dudley Ragney. Bay, how are you today?
Hey, Jack, what's going on? Hey, I am beyond, not only am I stoked and excited for May 3rd to be able to hang out with the one and only Joel Gertner, but the fact that we get to sit here this evening and shoot the shit, honored, excited, and maybe I'll move up that ladder to be vanilla.
Hey, vanilla flavored semen, which, as I've been aging and maturing like a fine wine, it's turning into more of a tres leches or a creme brulee or a dulce de leche. But for want of being vanilla, we can call it vanilla. I don't want to kind of be an in-house provost here or jailhouse lawyer or anything like that. But just to correct Jack, only because he was wrong, he mentioned that I would be one half of the broadcast team for One and Done on May 3rd. And the truth of the matter is, my partner is Joe Dombrowski, which means I'm actually more like 85% of the broadcast team, but that's all right.
Very, very nice.
I love it. I love it.
If it would be, I think, a good place to start, Joel, in terms of discussing how you broke into the business. You broke in at a very, very young age, relatively speaking, and dropped out of a prestigious educational environment to get into this crazy world of pro wrestling. How did that occur?
Yeah, I ran off and joined the circus. Basically, I was going to Cornell University. I was in my third year. ECW was really heating up, and they had a show coming up in Middletown, New York, which, really, if we're being completely honest, is not really anywhere near Cornell up in Ithaca, but I guess it's not too far. And I was in Philly catching an ECW show, and I was hanging out at the Travelodge Hotel after the show in the bar, and ECW was on the TV, and everybody was hanging out. And I noticed that Paul Heyman had walked in. He was in the lobby. And I said, well, I mean, maybe this is kismet, if you've ever had an opportunity, maybe this is it, and maybe you should ask for a job. So I walked up to him, let him know that I had admired his work for years as a manager and a commentator, let him know that we had a mutual friend, let him know that I was at Cornell and would be able to get to Middletown, and in case he wasn't going to be using his regular Philadelphia crew of ring announcers and timekeepers in Middletown, would there be an opportunity for me to do that there, kind of as a tryout? And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, you want it? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, you got it. Be there by 5. And that was it.
Wow, how fortuitous. Bubby, did you when you met Joel, what were your thoughts on his unique talents, of which we'll speak of in a bit?
It's funny, and I think I told this to Joel years ago. When Joel first started coming around, he was almost kind of like a gopher, right, Joel? I mean, he was always running around backstage helping out and all. It like at the Philly show because we had Bob Artiste, so he really wasn't getting that chance, and he'd be out at ringside and things like that. But he was like this quiet dude, and then all of a sudden he got on the mic and he started doing like the lucha announcing, and I remember like everybody was like, how the fuck did this happen? Like, where did this come from? Like, nobody knew or expected. And Joel just blew the whole locker room away. And little did anybody know what was about to be on Earth because, you know, I've gone on record and I've probably said this a million times. I think Joel Gertner is one of the absolute funniest and amazing things that happen to this business. And every time I need a smile, this man is the man that puts a smile on my face. Seriously.
I appreciate that, man.
Want to talk about your actual really record, groundbreaking style in terms of your over the top ring introductions. They've really become the stuff of legend for ECW and the Philadelphia scene in general. How in the world did you come up with some of those limericks, so to speak, and the fans that are watching right now are already asking if you could treat them with a poem?
How I came up with them, it was a constant work in progress, a constant evolution. It started with something that I read in a dirty joke book one time. How is a penis like a Rubik's Cube? The more you play with it, the harder it gets. And when I was 10, I thought that was cool. And I guess I thought in the back of my mind that if I ever made it to TV, I would let more people know about that. So that's how that was the first one. And then from there, they just kind of started getting more verbose and longer and more rhymey, and they turned into like limericks, like Gertnerisms. And so yeah, that was kind of the evolution of it. Originally, it was just kind of a short, like a nickname, and then eventually it turned into like a poem or like rap lyrics or whatever.
Did you ever get any pushback from either Paulie or later on with the network in terms of your content, or told to tone it down or any of that sort of deal?
Yeah, the network, if anything, more from the network, but not, I mean, they kind of knew what I did. And, just our deal with the network was kind of half a shoot. Like, it was kind of, why are the only time you could see an ECW on TNN promo is during ECW on TNN. And I always wondered, living in New York City, like, how come I'm seeing the side of the city bus and it's got a roller jam, ad on the side of the bus? Why aren't they advertising us when we're getting twice the rating and we're the lead in? So, I mean, stuff like that. We were, the network and us, we were kind of always at each other's throats. They probably didn't love it, honestly. I mean, they're showing like Dukes of Hazzard and Alice, and like, I mean, they probably, it wasn't their cup of tea, I'm sure. In-house from us, I mean, Paul wanted me to, take on the JFK Jr. thing, and he was like, do your worst and write something up and let's do this. And it wound up getting a jeer in TVGuideOnline.com. In-house, he would know. Paul was pretty much a real staunch, for lack of a better term, advocate for my stuff. He was on board. And there was one night, not that I was going out there to get heat and go long, but I mean, I wasn't out there to go short either. There was one night where I really had a lot of shit to get in. And I was almost surprised that night that there wasn't any pushback for how long that I went. I guess the stuff was good enough and the crowd was into it enough that it didn't keep the show going long enough that there wasn't any reason to have heat over it. But no, I mean, not really. Thank goodness for as edgy as I tried to be and for as much as I tried to push the envelope. I think it was just understood that I was going to be kind of the Andrew Dice Clay of ECW, and that's it,
That's a good way to. I never even thought of that, like the Dice Man of ECW. Were you ever approached? You mentioned, or maybe Jack, you mentioned earlier, rap, or Joel, you said like became kind of like a rap. Were you ever approached by any musical artist to do anything like that?
One or two have reached out to me, yeah, and we kind of, some of it is serious, and so I've spoken with Action Bronson, and he's used quintessential stud muffin in some of his lyrics and stuff. I haven't done any kind of VO or ADR or gone into a studio and dropped some bars that have showed up in a rap tune, but it's come close. There's been interest, and like I say, Action Bronson has dropped at least one mention. So yeah, I mean, in that world, I think there are some who are kind of attuned to, there are definitely ECW fans in the world of hip hop, just like anywhere. But nothing, I haven't put my voice on wax yet as far as any actual music. I think I appeared in that music video that ran on MTV, that Kilgore video for Rob Van Dam's music for Walk. They shot the video for that downstairs in the Elks Lodge. So me and the Dudleys, we show up on MTV in that. But that's, I think, the closest I've really come to laying it down on wax, so to speak.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's germane that you mentioned the Dudleys, not only with Chubby here, but a lot of the hardcore fans still look back on your tenure with the Dudley Boys as a really high water mark in ECW, especially when they were at the apex of their talents in the company. What do you have a favorite moment working with them? And the second part of this question is thinking back to that amazing Heat Wave promo where Bubba almost got into it with some of the fans. I'm sure there were many nights where the heat, the legitimate heat, not go away heat, but white hot heat from yourself and the unit was such that did you ever fear for your well-being in such an environment? So that's a two-parter.
Yeah. So second part, I never feared for my well-being, partially out of being young and dumb, mostly really because when you've got Bubba and Devon and Big Dick Alex, when you've got the three of them behind you, there isn't much to fear unless it's a party of 5, 10, 15. And then we've got Atlas Security, our in-house security. So I never really had much fear. I couldn't. It wouldn't have meshed well with the persona that I was trying to put across. If I had gone out there fearful, it's like being a deer in the headlights. You're just caught. So thankfully, and for whatever reason, I had no fear, and I'm glad of that. Favorite moments, man, we had, near riots. I mean, if that's your idea of fun because you're out there being a heel, then boy, was it fun. And we had a near riot at a National Guard armory, right in the National Guard armory, to the point where the National Guard gets called, and they're getting called because it's happening in their house right downstairs. It's almost like, if you slide down the pole at a fire station, it's almost like that's how they were coming down, the National Guards members, into their own, residence downstairs where the ring is. And, there's dogs, and there's Tracy Smothers just out of the shower with a towel around them. Is somebody hold my watch? I'm going to go take on the dog so you guys can take. I mean, it was just, honestly, it was the most surreal thing ever. God, so many great moments, man. Both of the heat waves, that building in Dayton, Hara Arena, was just amazing for us. Mid-Hudson Civic Center, where I was a few weeks ago and where I'll be again, also in May. Just an amazing building, just the arena every time. I mean, there are so many different contexts and nights and buildings and atmospheres that were so much fun. Everything with the Dudleys was fun from the very beginning, and the evolution of it, and Bubba turning heel, and until the end when, finally I'm cleared to be out there without my neck brace on, and it's the night that I'm celebrating. I don't have to wear a neck brace anymore, and Bubba and Devon give me their finish, and they take me out with 3D, and all of a sudden I'm back in the neck brace. Everything was just, my whole run was from like age 20 to 25. So it was just, for me, the same way some people, maybe they play high school football or college basketball, and that's like the highlight of their life and their glory days. Like that's the classroom of my youth. You know what I mean? That feels like 5 lifetimes ago almost, and just kind of, an innocence, and it just has just an aura and a vibe and a charm that is, I'm just so thankful that I can harken back and remember those times.
Do you get are you ever surprised with the amount of love that you get and nostalgia for that run? I mean, ECW, the original ECW, and your work in general, because I know you must get a lot of feedback when you do appearances and fan fest, etc. Does that really, does it ever surprise you, considering some big organizations went out of their way to erase the legacy of the original ECW and it never happened?
I guess I'm always pleasantly surprised. I'm always thankful. I'm always grateful. I never take it for granted. And some of it surprises me. Yesterday I was in Syracuse for a Comic-Con, and a gentleman brought his daughter, and he started telling me a story, and I absolutely remembered it. I kind of cut him off and let him know no reason to say any more, because this man had brought his daughter 5 years ago to a minor league baseball appearance that I did in Binghamton, New York, and she was wearing a bow tie and a neck brace. And so she was like 3 years old at the time. So they were there yesterday in Syracuse, and now she's 8 years old. And he said he wanted to take an updated picture. And it's, moments like that. It's just cool that they're not just watching, and it's not just moving wallpaper, and it's not just, a diversion that, just kind of a throwaway, it means a lot to a lot of people. It has stuck with them. They are emotionally invested in it. And yeah, that's always pleasant to see, because, all the bumps that I was taking, the manager bumps, the finishers from every baby face in the locker room, I wasn't doing that for my health. And, and it wasn't millions of dollars that I was making at the time. So I wasn't really doing it for the money. I was doing it because it was what I felt was my calling, and it was a labor of love. And, so it's great to see how many fans there actually are, and how much the product and the content and the entire experience from back then has resonated with them and stuck with them to this day.
Bay, do you have a favorite moment, either with Joel or in terms of his career?
There was just so many. Me and Joel, I was out of ECW at that point when Joel really started working with the Dudleys and all. But I mean, there was so many moments. But I want to know, was there any, looking back, Joel, like when you come across videos of your rhymes and all, is there anything that like stands out when you say to yourself, I can't believe I actually said that?
The JFK Jr. thing was pretty sharp. The JFK Jr. thing was pretty nasty. It was pretty vitriolic. It was pretty on the cusp, man. And it was, his body was still not cold, and we were going on TV. It was like Weekend Update on crack. And some stations wouldn't air it. And we got blowback from Ron, the gentleman that wrote the wrestling column in Winston-Salem, did not like it. TVGuideOnline.com did not like it. And I'm sure TNN didn't like it, or I think we could have, if we were still syndicated at the time. Like I say, a lot of stations didn't air it. MSG Network, I think, did not air it in my hometown. So there was that. My job was just to go out there. I was born and bred, and my bread was buttered on, like we were talking about Andrew Dice Clay before.
Mhm.
Like, what I was marinated in was Howard Stern and the Jerky Boys and Andrew Dice Clay and Sam Kinison and Morton Downey Jr.
Mm.
and Roddy Piper and Piper's Pit and Jesse the Body Ventura and the heel managers, all of that. That's what I wasn't an athlete. I didn't have a Hurricane Rana. I couldn't do lucha. I didn't know how to chain wrestle. None of that was what I was bringing to the table. It was my job to entertain. And when you're entertaining in ECW, if you're not extreme, you're a fish out of water. You shouldn't be there. You're just taking up space and you're wrong for the content, for the product. And so, yeah, it was just my job to keep pushing the envelope more and more as a heel, to push people's buttons more and more. And yeah, so it was just my job to be a fountain of creativity.
Let's talk Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. I know you broke in after the initial incarnation of Tri-State was gone, but being such a fixture in the Philly wrestling scene, what was your awareness of TWA and the overflow into ECW? And also, when did you get the call to be the 85% of the upcoming broadcast team on May 3rd?
A few months ago, the powers that be had a revelation that indeed they wanted this show to be a success. They wanted to make as much money as possible, and they wanted it to have a lingering effect like we've talked about and be something that resonated with the fans and stayed in their minds forever as an iconic event and a one-of-a-kind, one-time, once-in-your-life experience. You can't do that without me. So they called. Somehow they were able to pony up the right amount of money, and that's, of course, being that it wasn't enough, but out of the kindness of my heart, for the respect that I have for Joel Goodhart, for Bay, for the Philadelphia indie scene, that, like you say, I was a little bit too young to be a part of. I started in like 91, 92 when I was around 16. But for the first year or two while I was still in high school, I didn't travel much. Whatever I was doing was kind of at my home gym in Manhattan or, eventually, a little bit in Brooklyn, a little bit in Jersey. But as far as Philly, I was aware of the shows, and I knew of the bus trips that were going to them. But at the time, we even had shows at Gleason's gym, on the other part of Brooklyn. Johnny Rods was bringing in every once in a while Bruiser Brody, Abdullah the Butcher. But again, because I was 14, 15, 16, I wasn't going to those. I was aware of them. I would find out the results. I would, people that I knew would go, but I wasn't going to those shows. And that was kind of the category that Tri-State Wrestling Alliance fell in for me, is that, whatever they had big, I think, quarterly shows, and whatever nights those were, there's no place else I would have rather been than 99 miles from my home at, in Philly watching the TWA show. But unfortunately, 14, 15, 16, I guess maybe I could have thought about going. I could have asked, but I just, it's almost cool. Maybe it'll come across in my commentary that it's this thing that I wasn't able to, didn't get the chance to experience originally. So it's very magical to me. It's very the same way, when in the 80s, where I was first watching footage from Toronto of the WWF, and they were showing footage from Maple Leaf Gardens. And I was like, wow, there's a place with wrestling called Make Believe Gardens. And the same way there was Make Believe Gardens in Philadelphia, there was the TWA. And it was all this crazy hardcore stuff that was happening that I now, of course, know, and knew then too, was a precursor to ECW. But I never went and wish I did. So hopefully that'll come across in the commentary with Joe Dombrowski, is that this is something that I have a very high level of respect for and wish I could have been at the original shows. So here I am, able to celebrate kind of the full compendium, the full anthology, and see everything as it comes full circle.
I got to ask you for a prediction, though. One of the matches on the card that a lot of folks are talking about, a man you're very, very familiar with his work, and I want to take nothing away from him because he's an ECW original and a legend. That would be Super Crazy, is facing my man Hannibal, the Death Dealer, in a no gimmicks match. We're going to put aside the politics and the way that Mr. Chubby Dudley here double-crossed me, but Crazy's work really, really well, and you know how over and popular he is with the Philly fans. How do you think he's going to fare in this encounter, meaning no gimmicks, meaning anything goes?
Well, Super Crazy lives up to his name. He's insane. He's willing to do what it takes, and he'll pull out all the stops. He is, I think, very well versed in the lucha style, in the Mexican wrestling style, and I'm sure even, when it comes to the Llave style, and he knows everything that he knows. And because he's not just a luchador, but an extreme luchador, he has had much of a taste of the extreme and hardcore style. Whether he is well versed enough in that style to deal with the likes of a bigger and I think younger Hannibal, that's kind of the question. Is Crazy enough that, like a fox, he's crazy in the way that he can take on and defeat Hannibal? Or was he crazy to get himself involved in a mess with Hannibal in a no gimmicks match in the first place? And I think that's going to be the question that gets answered in that match.
And you can thank Bay for what happens to Super Crazy too. It could be the last time. I've got money on it. I guess I shouldn't say that since I'm managing him, but I've got money on it that it's the last time that those fans see Super Crazy, and I'll be very interested to hear your commentary of the match. But before we let you go, sir, I have to ask, you're part of the RassleCon. You're one of the featured guests starting at noon on May the 3rd in the 2300 Arena. You're going to meet all those fans that you probably haven't seen for a while in the arena itself. What would you like to, or what do you think you're going to say to them when you see them? Because again, I think you're going to be met with a whole lot of love.
I appreciate that. I hope you're right. That's always a blessing when fans are kind enough to tell you that they've enjoyed your work and that they're glad to see you, and it's good that you're there. And I think it's going to be great to see a lot of old faces, familiar faces. Growing up in ECW in my early 20s, I was in that building, ECW Arena, every third Saturday, and eating my lunch or dinner at Tony Luke's every third Saturday, staying at the Travel Lodge or every third Saturday. And it really was, you become like family and you become friends with a lot of the people that are at the shows. I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to it. And I urge everybody within the sound of all of our voices and watching this video, clear your calendar, make your arrangements, set your money aside, and be there, because it's once in a lifetime. It's a moment in time. It's the place to be for wrestling in that part of the country on that night. It is TWA one and done. And whether you're somebody who used to go to every TWA show, or whether you're like me, somebody who knew about TWA and wanted to, but couldn't or didn't go, whether you were too young or not even born, and whether this is going to be your one and only TWA experience, whatever it is, whatever you need to do to be there. I think this is going to be a very, very worthwhile spend of your time, very worthwhile value for your money. And yeah, I'd love to see everybody there.
Chubby, do you have any final words for Mr. Gertner? I see the fans are clamoring for a poem. Are you going to give them? Are you going to give them a sample, or are they going to have to wait till May the 3rd?
Whoa, whoa, whoa! It is I, the lyrical miracle, the sexual, intellectual, the cunning linguist, and the quintessential stud muffin, Joel, on May 3rd in Philadelphia. Bale B, I'll be, and Jack Kilby. Yes, indeed, we will be. Jack Kilby, he will be. We'll all be in Philly at One and Done. Even your mom or older sister might come have some fun with me, Gertner.
Always an icon when he opens his mouth. Speaking of icon, we I don't know if many people know this yet. We well, I should say Joel, because he dropped this bomb on me the other day, decided to add another person to RassleCon. The one and only Mr. Tully Blanchard will now be a guest at RassleCon.
Wow.
And I'll say this. It's not confirmed, but we do have a match that night at One and Done where we have Tully's daughter, Tessa Blanchard, facing off against Baby Doll's daughter, Samantha Starr. Could Tully end up in a corner? Could Baby Doll end up in her daughter's corner? We don't know. We don't know. But I know as a parent, I would be in my daughter's corner. That's all I'm going to say.
That's very interesting.
Yes, it's going to be literally history in the making. I know a lot of folks talk in the wrestling business hyperbole, but this is definitely going to be history, and a big part of it will be the involvement of the quintessential stud muffin, Mr. Gertner. Look forward to meeting you for the first time in Philadelphia on May the 3rd, but thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Bay. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel.
And thanks, everybody. Can't wait for the show and can't wait to see you there.
Take care, sir.
Take care, Joel.
Well, he certainly has not lost a step, has he?
You know what? It's an absolute crime that he was never hired full-time by the WWE.
I agree.
I don't understand it. I don't know if his rhymes would have been too extreme for them, I guess. I don't know, but I don't understand. There's definitely a spot that could have been made for him. And in my honest opinion, I think there's still a spot, because I think they need somebody on that SmackDown roster in that commentating table. I'm just saying that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I often thought that myself, and maybe it was, just a case of when ECW closed, they were segueing out of the Attitude Era. But Joel is a guy that certainly has the knowledge and the experience that they so desperately need in that company and other companies, AEW being one of them. We need more wrestling people, including yourself, in the industry to shape the product, because I think we're seeing a lot of instances where it's just not living up creatively to the past. But man, you dropped a huge announcement there, and as a shoot, I had no idea. Huge Tully Blanchard fan, man.
I had no idea. It was dropped on me the other day, so I was not expecting that at all.
That is he going to be at the RassleCon too?
Yes, he will be definitely he will be a guest at RassleCon. Yes.
Fans, I'm speaking from the heart here. You would be hard pressed to find a more loaded fan experience with the RassleCon and the show itself. It's going to be spectacular. So I know Hannibal TV has a lot of fans in the Northeast area, Philly included, is one of our big cities, but also in Ontario. We're about give or take Ottawa, Kingston, Toronto, about a 6-hour drive to Philly. Go out of your way to come down because you're not going to be disappointed. I know, Chubby, you could go through all the legends that are on the Fan Fest, the RassleCon, and I don't think we could squeeze it in the time remaining. And that's not to even talk about the show itself. I couldn't be more pumped for the whole day. It's going to be a bucket list event. And something that a true wrestling fan, an old school pro wrestling Philly style fan can't miss. Where can they get those tickets?
2300arena.com is the only place to get those tickets. So go there. It's my prediction is sell out because it is the absolute independent wrestling event of the year. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to see a show that is historical. It's a part of history in the making. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster ride from start to finish with many surprises through the night. Don't miss it. I'm telling you.
And let's before we end this episode 3, let's not forget. First of all, even though I don't like some of your underhandedness with our match and that double cross, I have to give credit where credit's due. I tell it like it is. And I think your efforts for the banner, incredible work, long overdue. I think that's going to, as you've said before, I don't think there's going to be a dry eye in the house when that banner gets dropped, raised, whatever nomenclature you want to put around it. Can you just run down the legends that are going to be on that banner in the 2300 arena?
Yes. So we have Mad Dog DC Drake, Johnny Hotbody, Tony Stetson, Joel Goodhart, and the late great Larry Winters. And Larry's children will be there in his honor, in his place that night as the banner is dropped, raised, however you want to put it.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of the banner is here's a situation where deserving legends are getting their due that really for too long. I know when we started talking about this in concept a year and a half, 2 years ago, it was one of the things that bothered me that any fan of Philly wrestling, the hardcore scene there and the Attitude Era, etc., that wouldn't have happened without TWA. And this feels like props that are coming to these people. Plus, as Joel said, he never got the opportunity to end it in a proper way, and that's why One and Done is going to be so special.
It really is. Like Joel has we've been we're also filming a documentary about all of this and Joel and Tri-State, and we've Ryan Cavanaugh, who's doing an amazing job behind the scenes with the documentary and some other things. He has dropped out little tidbits of clips of videos from that he's done with Joel. And I think there's one out there where Joel talks about, the regret he's lived with all these years on doing what he did. And, this is finally for him closure for Joel. And when we had the meeting at Joel's house back in October, it was the first time a lot of us saw each other in person in 30 plus years. It was emotional for everybody there. Cried at one point, but to see Joel, the human side of Joel, break down on how much this show truly means to him, it was like, all right, this is it. Game fucking on, boys. Let's fucking go. Let's do this.
Yeah, I can't stress it enough. This is going to be history, and fans, I'm telling you, you're going to regret it if you don't check the RassleCon out and the show. Tickets available at 2300arena.com. And I think that we're looking forward to some more episodes of this program, the countdown to TWA One and Done. We're gonna I guess it's not a spoiler because I put it out there, but our last episode will be Joel himself, and I'm really looking forward to that one. I hope that I don't stumble on my words and get details wrong, as I can sometimes do. But really, really looking forward to his perspective when we're so close to the show. And in the meantime, we're going to announce subsequent guests. So stay tuned to the Hannibal TV, and we will put those out there. And I know you do, Chubby. You're a workhorse, man. You must be putting in so many hours. Again, hats off.
This is the list of upcoming shows in the next week and a half.
My goodness, you're an Iron Man. Any final thoughts before we close out this particular edition, though?
2300arena.com. Get those tickets and bring a box of puffs. You're going to need them.
Awesome. Well, fans, that's it for this edition of Countdown to TWA One and Done. We will see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and hit the notification button. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe if you haven't, but hit the notification button and you won't miss this content.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest